everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is Victoria from Adelaide Capital. So today I'm being joined by Silas Garrison, the CEO of HealthSpace. So HealthSpace is a niche play in the GovTech space that offers a cloud-based and mobile solution to state and local agencies to digitize their government office, creating significant workplace efficiencies as well as cost savings. So, many of you know the HealthSpace story. Some of you are new. So I'm going to pass it over to Silas, who's going to run through the presentation, and then we'll follow up with a Q&A at the end. So, hey, Silas, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Victoria, and thank you all for attending. I know there's going to be a lot of familiar faces in the crowd and some new folks as well. So I'm going to go through the presentation knowing that a lot of you have heard this story before, and that's, we'll have the Q&A session here at the end. So HealthSpace, especially for those of you who are familiar with the story, but what is HealthSpace? HealthSpace is a software as a service, a SaaS company that operates and focuses exclusively on the governmental space, primarily state, local, city, county-based governmental agencies. We have one core focus and one mission, and that is to help government agencies operate more efficiently, and that is through managing their data. As you can imagine, government, a lot of ideas get conjured up in your mind when someone says government. They have a lot of data, a lot of information that they have to manage, from issuing permits to conducting inspections, such as like a sanitary inspection you would see in a restaurant, even managing their invoices and accounting data. All of that information is what flows through our cloud-based platform, and it is what we are focused on helping these government agencies manage and issue more efficiently. So HealthSpace being a GovTech play, which is probably a new word for some of you, but GovTech being the combination of government and technology. And we sit at that very unique intersection, which means that our market is not like a lot of others with a lot of SaaS plays that you would maybe come into contact with. But that's very good because our market is very unique and our product is actually even more unique within it. Cloud-based technology for government is actually not something that's widely prevalent. There are very few competitors that we go up against that even have anything web-based or cloud-based, and so many solutions that are large incumbents and large competitors that we go against are offline or desktop-based solutions. And so just being cloud alone, but our platform goes beyond that. It's very powerful, nimble, and configurable, and that is really translated into allowing us to build a very strong and significant sales pipeline over the past 2 years. Right now, our sales pipeline stands at $25 million in what we call near-term visibility. So these are deals that we have quoted, customers that we've come into contact with that have asked for a price, and that we expect to close sometime within the next near term, the majority of it within the next 12 months. Our customer base being government means that they're not really quick to change. We have a very sticky customer base. All of our customers sign very long-term contracts, 5 years plus. And that means that the revenue is very predictable. We'll touch on it later, but we'll talk a lot about our annual recurring revenue, our ARR, which is a very important benchmark with SaaS companies and very reliable when it comes to how we sign contracts with our customers. One of the things that's very important with government and especially our customer base is that with our services and our products being kind of unparalleled, we have over 98% customer retention rate year over year. It's a very high customer retention rate. And government, as everybody knows, is reticent to change. So once they find a technological provider that they like, they pretty much will stick with them. Our near-term target in terms of the next phase of growth is to reach 10 million in ARR. That 10 million in ARR we believe to be likely achievable within the next 12 to 18 months, pending some of the deals that come into that sales pipeline. But we have some accelerators that could actually push that timeline into even a sooner window, but I'll touch on that in a moment. For those who don't know me or know much about HealthSpace, I'm the CEO and I've been with the company since 2016, originally joining in as the Chief Technology Officer and then became the CEO in 2018. I've been in the GovTech space for the better part of 20 years. And I can assuredly say with full confidence that there's just never been a better time to be pushing out new cloud-based tech for the governmental market. It's hot. There's a lot of grant dollars floating around, and I'm extremely excited to continue to go through this presentation, but to be at the helm of such a significant opportunity. So working with government, and my slide presentation is somehow going slow. Working with government, we have a broad base of customers, and we also sell into both the US and Canada. This is significant. It's significant for two reasons. Is one, it gives us exposure into two significant markets, both international markets. But it's also significant because we're able to build a platform that is nimble for both, rural Canadian counties all the way up to, whole provinces, even going down into the US states. And that means that our platform continues to evolve to become applicable to more customers in new ways. This snapshot here is a graph of the United States and US and Canada, where we have several large footprints. As you can see, we have some geographical clustering. And this is really important, and I'll touch on here in just a minute, but that geographic clustering is really important because what it does, it allows us to get one customer, and that customer kind of becomes a seed that everything grows around. And we've seen a lot of traction out of the California market. That started just with one sale. So as we continue to plant new areas of traction, geographic expanse, it's really important. One thing I'll mention on this slide is that the highlighted red states that you see in the US, that means that we have a statewide contract, which is interesting because we're able to actually also sell statewide deals, meaning we engage with the state at the highest level. And then we also are able to still engage counties within that same state. You see that in Ohio, Colorado, and others. And so the red is signifying a statewide contract, but it doesn't mean that once you have the state, you have everything. You're still able to do additional deals with each unique county. So our product line is comprised of a hub and spoke model. Everything is centered around our HS Cloud platform. HS Cloud is an enterprise data management platform that has been built and tooled exclusively for government. And the one thesis behind HS Cloud is to allow us to rapidly deliver highly complex, near almost to the appearance of the user, customized software in a fraction of the time it takes in other vendors and competitors. Truly, there is nothing else on the market like that, and we are continuing to expand its power. But everything begins and ends with HS Cloud. We have two product offerings off on the left-hand side that you see, My Health Department and HS Touch. These are included as part of the user licensing model that we charge for HS Cloud. And then we have two over on the right, HS Pay and GovCall. These are additional revenue generating opportunities. And I'm going to touch on each of these products here in more detail. So HS Cloud, if you're going to remember one thing about it, and a lot of you have heard me say this before if you've heard the presentation, but you're going to remember one thing is the fact that it can be self-serve. Self-serve within government is simply, and when it comes to technology, is simply just something that doesn't exist. Technology for government means that you have to take into account their unique laws and codes, their regulation, their business workflows, the unique nature of every single agency, which changes city to city, state to state, country to country. And HS Cloud is one of the very first platforms that really takes that paradigm of really where software engineers had to code something to spec and allowing the customer or our customer operations team to deliver the software through very nominal technical means, meaning that they can, with a point and click nature, deliver the software and in an appearance of it being fully customized for that agency, because it truly is. It just didn't take a fully customization, building a software from the ground up. And that's a really important selling point to HS Cloud. And it's one of the things that will allow us to expand into new market opportunities, as I'll touch on in just a moment. So HS Touch, this one is fairly straightforward. It's the replacement for pen and paper in the field. So think about an inspector you might see doing a sanitary inspection for a restaurant. Traditionally, they're carrying a pen, paper, and a clipboard. This is the replacement for that. It works, on iOS, Windows, and Android operating systems. So it's a native mobile app that allows them to conduct this regulatory activity digitally, ergonomically, and also offline. And all of the data synchronizes seamlessly up to HS Cloud when they do come in contact with an internet connection. My Health Department. This is one of those really great additional product elements that not only is it a competitive advantage, but it's very important for our customers. My health department, we call it the digital replacement for a government office. What that really means is think of anything that you would do for an in-person interaction, from fill in and file for an application for a new business, renew your current permit, maybe pay for an existing invoice that you have outstanding, any sort of communication and paperwork that typically goes into working with your local government agency, especially a licensing agency like a health department. All of that information now is tucked into one centralized portal. So our customers, with a point and click, can publish data online, can accept information coming inbound online. And that is where we also target creating those efficiencies, being able to better manage the data inflow and outflow. And it also creates a lot of efficiencies for the private sector, for the private citizens. Citizen engagement, online citizen engagement, is critically important in this day and age, and something that a lot of politicians and government agencies are looking towards. But there's not a lot of obvious solutions on the market. And my health department is one of those core selling features on top of our central data management platform, HS Cloud. HS Pay. Now, I mentioned that HS Touch and my health department, those are part of the core technology package when someone pays for a subscription to HS Cloud. HS Pay is one of those additional, very exciting revenue generating opportunities. For those who have been following the story for a while or have heard me present, you know that HS Pay is something that I've been talking about for over a year now. And it has gone through some technical challenges. We had some setbacks and delays because of the pandemic. A lot of our customers were tending towards contact tracing. And that meant that HS Pay wasn't being rolled out in quick fashion. But I'm very pleased, as I mentioned in my CEO update just a few short weeks ago, that we are rolling it out in October. And we do anticipate revenue being generated in the fourth quarter. This revenue will obviously start to just transact very slowly, but as we are the middleman in these payments, and for those who are not familiar with what HS Pay is, in simple terms, it's an online and mobile payment solution to streamline the intake of governmental revenue. In even simpler terms, it's credit card and ACH digital check processing for government. And that we are able to get that half to a full 1% of every dollar that flows through this pipe, which means that over time, for the customers that adopted, and we anticipate a very significant portion of our customers, both new and existing, to be able to adopt this, what it will do is it potentially will eclipse the amount of revenue we are getting from their subscription, their annual subscription to utilize HS Cloud. Because that half to 1% represents a significant amount of additional revenue that comes through citizens just paying online for their everyday invoices that they have to pay for their permits, their renewals, their fines, their fees. So HS Pay is one of those very significant opportunities that we expect to really take significant traction and for us to start reporting on the numbers beginning in 2022. And GovCall, another one of those additional revenue generating opportunities that's very new. We announced it just a few short months ago, and just in the product development we have done thus far, as we have developed out the product in a very short time frame and continue to build upon it, we've already been able to take that initial product with GovCall, which is teleconferencing for government, and we've been able to introduce it into some of our newer contracts, such as Sonoma and Orange County. We were able to increase their ARR, their subscription revenue, by an additional a little over 20%. And we believe that that standard will be able to be achieved anywhere from 15 to 30% of additional ARR by just introducing GovCall. And so just how relevant is GovCall? Well, GovCall came about because of the need that was obviously introduced with the pandemic. The ability to conduct remote site visits, online via video conference call. And GovCall really still is the very first of its kind teleconferencing solution built for government. And the biggest selling point is that it's directly tied into the underlying data management, the ability to start a video conference call and know that it is associated to a specific permit, a specific citation. All of that matters very, very particularly for the government, because when they are conducting a video conference call like this, they're conducting a legal bound activity. And so GovCall really is one of those things that's going to set us up not only to increase additional revenue on both new contracts, as well as going and selling it back to existing customers, but also one of those things that's really going to allow us to accelerate aggressively into new markets, such as code enforcement that I've talked about quite significantly. And as we now have a new reseller channel, which I'll touch on towards the end with Unisys, GovCall is one of those very significant things that is going to allow us to really accelerate our growth in ways beyond just organic, traditional sales as we've done historically. Our customer base, as I didn't really mention at the top, the majority of our customers is environmental health departments. I mean, those who follow the story obviously know this and know that environmental health is a subset of kind of the general moniker of health department. And environmental health is really focused on the licensing, the permitting, the inspections, the billing. And if you really paint those kind of four terms together, those are the core components of our software and what it does. And that is what we're planning to expand, both through feature sets, additional R&D, and also aggressive sales tactics, both through the reseller channels and organically, to allow us to get into new types of agencies. And this slide here, one of the things I'll pinpoint on it is on the far left, Wisconsin Department of Agriculture. In January, we announced a 5-year, $2 million deal with Wisconsin Department of Ag. And that was breaking into a new type of agency beyond environmental health. Agriculture has the same needs: licensing, permitting, inspections, billing. And those core components are directly transposable in our cloud solution. Another one that I'll call out here under the environmental health there at the bottom that I typically always mention in these presentations, which is San Francisco. This is really where the inflection point and beginning of our true growth began. So we announced San Francisco in January of 2020, which is about 18, 20 months ago. And that 1.7 million 5-year deal has represented a large portion of our growth, has been attributed to a large portion of growth, especially California. Multiple deals have come out of that. We most recently announced Orange County, California, 1.4 million 5-year deal. And those are all in a direct result because of signing that one deal with San Francisco, kind of the beating heart of Silicon Valley. And we anticipate having a lot more kind of turning points here over the next 12 months where we have these inflection points, these kind of building blocks that are transformative to our future growth. And San Francisco was just the first of those. So looking at our growth in our sales pipeline, as I mentioned at the top, our sales pipeline stands at $25 million in visibility. And this really isn't all the visibility that we have. We're constantly in contact with dozens, even hundreds of potential customers on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. And constantly putting the seeds of, potential customer growth out there. This $25 million pipeline means that we have actually closed, as I mentioned in my CEO update, over 8 million in sales just this year. And that is, coming out of the pipeline and then putting more back in. Just over a year ago, our sales pipeline was $18 million in visibility. Now it's 25 after closing 8 million in deals. So we continue to see the opportunities pop up. There's a couple accelerators that we're really excited about. One that I'll touch on at the end as I talk with, I know Victoria, but this FDA grant that I mentioned in my CEO update. The ability for these local counties and these states that we sell into to be able to procure their funds, not out of their local budgets, which is sometimes what is part of the sales lag, but be able to go and tap federal grant dollars really will help us accelerate and close this sales pipeline even faster. Right now, our ARR under contract sits at just right around 4.5 million, just under 4.5 in terms of deals that we've closed and contractually announced. And we anticipate closing the end of the year out with 5 to 5.5 million in ARR. And obviously, if you've been following the story for a while, this is what we believe to be highly achievable at this point, given that we've faced a lot of delays. Some that we just could not predict and put a fine precision estimation on. But with the pandemic over the past 18 months, there was just numerous counties, numerous agencies that faced delays. And it was interesting because a lot of it was geographic specific. You would have one county that would be moving towards closing a sale and we would be able to close it. And then another one that would be moving at the same rate. And then all of a sudden they had an outbreak. Not the same as, any other county, they just had a particular outbreak. And so because of that, the estimation beyond sales cycles becomes very difficult. But we were very excited and very confident that this sales pipeline that going into 2022, we're going to be able to really capture and start to close it out within more, I would call it pre-pandemic sales timelines. So scrolling down into the market opportunity. And a lot of people will ask, especially if you're new to the story, well, government, it's big, it's broad, it's sometimes hard to get your mind around, what does that mean? And government is significant. We do sell into a very significant market opportunity, billions of dollars. But what does that translate into in terms of some of the agencies that we've talked about? Environmental health, just one subset of market that we've gotten significant penetration into or really starting to dominate, especially in the California and a few other specific regions. What does that represent? Well, it represents upwards of 120 million ARR TAM. And that's just one element of the market. Agriculture, it's smaller, but it's still significant because it represents another buying group we sell into. And then you have public health, something that we began selling into because of the pandemic with the likes of contact tracing and those type of things. Public health and clinical health, kind of two sides of the same coin, really represent an even bigger market opportunity, 180 million ARR TAM. And one not listed here, and we plan on highlighting it more with detailed numbers as we begin to build traction, is code enforcement. Code enforcement represents an even bigger opportunity than all of these. And again, code enforcement in simple terms is another agency that performs that permitting, inspection, licensing, the billing, and our cloud platform being second to none already. And we have a lot of revamping that we're doing to it to make it even more powerful for agencies like code enforcement. Coupled with GovCall, we anticipate being able to grow into multiple market segments within the government market in a very aggressive way. Really starting in 2022, we anticipate code enforcement becoming significant, but continuing that dominance that we've seen into the environmental health market and continuing traction in public health and agriculture as well. So this is just a look at our capital structure. So our basic shares outstanding, 36 million, a fully diluted basis, 48 million. It's a very straightforward, and our presentation is available on our website for those who want to take a closer look. Our management and directors listed here. I won't go through and read everybody's bio. One thing I will mention that is pretty significant for us and very exciting is there a recent appointment of Dean Christie as our CFO. Before that, we had a CFO who was working through a consulting an accounting firm. So we were paying an accounting firm to work with us and provide CFO services. Having Dean in-house, a full-time dedicated CFO, one, Dean is a great man for the job, but it also means that we're going to be really keen and focusing on margins, focusing on the ability to track expenditures and really increase efficiency. We have a wide, very firm mandate to increase efficiency across many elements of our company. And bringing in Dean as our CFO to help steward that along with me is one of those key elements. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. I know there's Q&A. I will leave the presentation up on screen in case anybody in their Q&A wants to reference it. But, Victoria, I know you're here to jump back in and quiz me with some questions.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm going to kick off the Q&A, but I first want to say, I love these SaaS business models where you really do. You have a niche product, you have an extremely sticky customer base, and you're continuing to grow your revenues, into a market where digital transformation is becoming a necessity. And we're seeing this digital transformation in businesses, but I don't think anyone realizes, how necessary it is for governments to really operate and perform their day-to-day work. So I really do think that this is a stock that you can hold for a long period of time and be comfortable holding. And, you're going to look back and you're really going to see the rewards as they continue to build and grow this company. So I definitely want to say that.
I agree, Victoria, from the standpoint that there's just never been a better time in terms of what I'm seeing in the GovTech space. The government market is in dire need of digital transformation, especially cloud-based digital transformation. So we are very excited from where we sit for the growth opportunities ahead.
I'm going to the DMV this week to get an Arizona driver's license. I'll let you know how it goes. But anyways, for the Q&A, so you released, your CEO update 2 weeks ago. You put out a lot of new information in there. So I just wanted to kick it off by maybe unpacking, some of the information that you put out and asking a few questions. The first was, given COVID and the pandemic, it now sounds like government agencies are getting back to work. So can you just tell us what you're seeing on the ground?
Yeah, we are seeing a return to normalcy. Agencies that a lot of people, direct customers that we've been working with, existing customers are starting to go back into the office. And that signifies that new customers, these customer markets that we're selling into, We're seeing less distractions, less, duck and cover kind of, we've got a lot coming at us. We cannot think about a software implementation kind of answers. And one of the ones that really signifies that is, Sacramento, California. We announced that bid award and that deal just a couple of weeks ago. That one was done in a fairly short order. And in fact, they're working to now try to expedite closing out the contract post bid award. And that really is encouraging to us because, for the past 18 months, 20 months, it's been really hard to get a gauge on, okay, is this deal going to take an extra 3 weeks or an extra 3 months because they're fighting the pandemic literally. And now we're starting to not really see that as a major factor, and that logjam dissipates. So right now we're very encouraged and very excited about seeing that kind of come off and us being able to now very easily follow through on a lot of the deals that we've been, shoring up and putting on that kind of 1 yard line.
Yeah, it must be nice to see the sales cycle starting to normalize again, resemble some pre-pandemic.
Anything pre-pandemic is good at this point, but definitely sales cycles.
And then also just along the lines of the pandemic. So I saw that the state of Hawaii, renewed their contract for contact tracing. I actually also saw a stat that you guys put out that, they saved 700,000 person days via this system. So that's a good accomplishment. But I guess, my question is, as COVID becomes less of an issue, how are governments going to pivot this product to continue using it?
It's a good question. And before I delve into answering the question, one of the things I will just say is that I stated at the top, our mission is helping government operate more efficiently. And when we got that stat, 700,000 person days, which equates to millions and millions of person hours saved, we did something for the state of Hawaii that literally no other software and digital provider could do. And they told us that factually, and that is just a humbling and awesome experience. But that being said, what it really showcases too is that the power of the software and the stickiness of it. COVID is starting to dissipate, though there's still a need for contact tracing, especially with the Delta variant, going around. Hawaii is still using it for that, and they plan to use it for a year plus from now. But really the underlying technology that we built into HS Cloud was an automated text messaging and kind of CRM management system that is centered around the use case for public health. And that underlying technology is still very relevant and powerful well beyond COVID. Public health departments, much like the state of Hawaii utilizing us for contact tracing, they've been doing things like that for, diseases non-COVID specific, flu, HIV. And so we believe that there's many sales opportunities beyond COVID for the underlying tech that we built for contact tracing. So it may not be specifically contact tracing itself, but there's still a lot of relevancy beyond COVID.
And then something new that you mentioned in the update, and you also mentioned it again just in your presentation just now, is this new FDA grant program. So can you just describe this more fully, what the opportunity is for HealthSpace and what we should know about it?
Yeah, that one is exceptionally exciting from the standpoint that it developed very rapidly. The FDA took a very keen interest, as it always does, in food safety. But they're starting to put money where their mouth is, so to speak. So they're unveiling a 3-year, $40 million grant vehicle that local health departments can apply for funds. And the way that they apply for funds is that they have to meet 9 criteria, and that 9 criteria has to be kind of digitally proven. And the only way to digitally prove it is to have a software provider. And it just so happens that virtually as close to out of the box as possible, I mentioned it many times in this presentation, permitting, licensing, inspections, billing, all are relevant factors to food safety, believe it or not. And those elements are built within our software and directly deployable after this opportunity. So we believe that this represents a significant accelerator as we go into 2022. The grant dollars will start to flow in January 1st of 2022, but we're already talking with several agencies that are trying to get first in line for these grant dollars, and they know that there's really very little other options out there, technologically speaking, to be able to get these funds other than going through HealthSpace. So we're very excited for what this means as an accelerant and an additional growth driver for us.
So we should stay tuned for news then, kind of throughout the fall and into 2022.
Absolutely. the grant vehicle kicks off in 2022, but we may have a couple surprises here early on with agencies that are trying to jump the gun.
And then, so you mentioned, in your Sacramento contract that you've replaced a longstanding incumbent. Can you just talk about, your contract wins? What percentage of them would be displacing incumbents versus, displacing maybe internal systems, or just how you're competing in that regards?
So one of the things I also mentioned in one of a recent press release in that regard is that the majority of California is really with one incumbent, the one that we displaced for Sonoma, Orange, and several others. And so what we're able to do is, what we believe that does is it sets up a significant market opportunity for us to go after incumbents. And that's going to be regional specific. So if you're talking California, nearly 80–90% are going to be leaving a competitor. But that's not consistent across the US. Historically, what we've seen is about 50–50%. 50% are leaving an incumbent, some other technology provider, and 50% are coming off a homegrown solution, or even surprisingly still pen and paper. San Francisco was a pen and paper homegrown solution. They never had an external vendor. So very interesting, but typically we're going to see 50–50, and then regionally it's going to be hot pockets like California, where the majority of them are going to be leaving an incumbent.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of news coming out of California recently.
Yes.
Good. And then, okay, so another question that I have is, when you talk about GovCall, you always speak about, how unique this product is, and it's going to allow you to enter new verticals. And when mentioning that, you always talk about how GovCall is really going to help you get into code enforcement. So my question is, why is that? So what does GovCall have that makes it so appealing, to a code enforcement type market that's going to give you guys a competitive advantage?
In simple terms, code enforcement is all about visual recognition or confirmation that something is either broken or fixed. And that is, it's in compliance or out of compliance with whatever the statutory law is or the code. And so that visual confirmation really requires a lot of driving, a lot of back and forth, a lot of scheduling that burns up inspectors' time or regulators' time and is inefficient. And we all can really easily understand why that's inefficient. And what GovCall gives them the ability to do is to pull up a singular record, a case, a permit, and be able to initiate a remote teleconferencing call with the owner or the responsible party and say, okay, instead of me driving out there, can you please show me where you cleaned up the debris that we cited you for last week? Okay, it is cleaned up, case closed. That kind of simple process is transformative and does not exist. And this is not something that we're going to have to highly convince the government is needed. They are looking and wanting a teleconferencing solution. We're even hearing a couple of stories about inspectors utilizing their personal iPhone, which isn't quite sanctioned by the department, to conduct remote site visits. Because it's not always necessary to show up in person. And when it's not necessary, the ability for your data management platform to provide you a conferencing solution that is directly intertwined is just an unparalleled and massive entrance for us to not just come into code enforcement and say, hey, we're a different technology provider, we're data management in the cloud. We can say we're data management and teleconferencing combined, and that gets people's attention. Okay,
right. So last question from me, and then we'll move over to the audience. But we've definitely seen your team grow, in anticipation of this growth ahead of you and the integration that you guys have been doing on contracts. So, is this the team, or are you guys going to keep needing to add bodies, or where do we stand on that?
And we're very happy with where our team is at. We've invested intentionally and very significantly into a couple of key areas. One is customer onboarding. So our operations team that onboards customers, it takes a team, depending on the size of customer, literally a team, but dedicated individuals who can work with the customer, suss out their business processes, and help them set up the software. That is just something that enterprise software always has. There's always a professional services component. And so we've staffed up heavily, not just for this year, but anticipating that our team members need training and onboarding time to be able to onboard our customers faster. And so this is staffing ahead of 2022 as well. And we've also really started to invest heavily in R&D. One of the things that everybody has seen who's followed the story is that HSPay, coupled with technological delays plus the pandemic, we weren't rolling it out as fast as even I would like, and so we're investing in R&D to make sure that our initiatives, our technological initiatives, HSPay, but now GovCall and others that aren't as visible but critical elements of like HS Cloud that we're building out to be more applicable in the code enforcement space, require R&D spend. And so we've built out our team significantly to invest in those opportunities, knowing that the future growth is just right around the corner, and that the team does not have to keep accelerating and doubling in size, year over year to meet that opportunity. We've really staffed up ahead of time so that as we break new ground, especially in 2022, we can rise to the occasion without faltering.
Okay, so you guys are set. You're staffed up and ready to go.
Oh, we are staffed up and ready.
So I'm going to move it over to audience questions, just reminding everyone, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So if you do have a question, you can type it in there. I had a few that were sent to me ahead of time. So Silas, I'm just going to read them out to you. The first is just asking if you can comment on your pipeline. Specifically, you once stated a $4 to $5 million contract. Is that still in play, delayed, or off the table?
All things in it that we have previously talked about are still in play. In fact, just to go a layer deeper, we've only had one deal fall out of our sales pipeline in the past 18 months. And I don't mean fall out because we closed it. Obviously, those come out as well. But one deal that just ended up, they chose not to move forward with a contract, so we moved it out of the quoted pipeline. So everything is still alive and very viable, including some very sized deals that we intend on capitalizing on in 2022.
Okay, and the second question, just asking about, what are your barriers to entry and what makes your product so unique that other technology companies can't just come in and replicate what you guys are doing?
Well, the first barrier to entry, before you even get to the technology, is just namesake and reputation. Your first sale in government is absolutely unequivocally the hardest. Because government likes to deal with known entities, known quantities. So first and foremost, our reputation and our current customer penetration, we have hundreds of customers all across US and Canada, is one of the biggest moats. The second, in terms of how hard is it to replicate the technology, it is extremely difficult and very cost prohibitive. We as a company ourselves have spent millions of dollars and years building out our cloud solutions and continue to build out new solutions. And it's not just like it's a cloud-based system. Okay, it's a website, data management, you could replicate that. We have engineered this utilizing hundreds of combined years of governmental experience of our team to build a platform from the ground up that is unparalleled, unique in terms of how it is set up and how it is fine-tuned for this agency. So you never can say never that your moat can never be too high. But it is a very tough hill to climb if in terms of any technological competitor trying to replicate what we've done.
Okay. And then can you comment on your historical close rate of your sales pipeline?
Yeah, historically, our sales pipeline has, when we get a deal to that close phase, we're batting, I always used to say, batting 1,000. And to date, we're batting, right around 97%. So once we get to like the demo phase, and it's going to go to a contract. So the only way that a customer hasn't closed is that they've decided we're going to wait till like next fiscal and budget cycles and things like that. But there has been less than a handful of deals that we have just not been able to close out because they went with the incumbent or something like that. So our close rate is extremely high, somewhere beyond 95%.
Oh, wow. Okay. So those were the only questions. So, you have another one. Okay. What is the company's approach to spending on growth versus reaching profitability?
So our initial plan right now has been to really focus on growth. And that growth is because the opportunity is very ripe. This FDA grant, $40 million in grant money that they're throwing out over the next 3 years. Someone's got to go out and seize that. And so it is very important that we focused on growth, knowing that as we capitalize on these opportunities, we can accelerate our pace towards profitability. I believe by the end of next year that we capitalize on a lot of these growth metrics, that sometime in the latter half of next year, we really can get back to that break-even point. Whereas right now, we're not. And so that is really our eye has been on growth. And as I mentioned in the presentation, one of my mandates to all of our team is efficiency, being a keen eye on that margin. And so we're really getting aggressive on the cost expenditures and making sure that we're marching towards that profitability in 2022, knowing that we've built up the team and the growth initiatives to get the growth. And now as we get into 2022, it'll be really focusing on achieving profitability.
Okay. Last chance for any audience questions. And with that, so there's one more from me, Silas, before we end it. So when you think about HealthSpace longer term, call it 5 years out, based on your current visibility and the vision that you have for the company, what do you guys look like?
So starting with, the vision, being in the GovTech space as long as I've always had this long desire and passion and vision that the government space needs a self-serve SaaS model. And that's what we're aiming to do. And so with that, as we continue to capitalize on our market opportunities and push the R&D initiatives, we believe that over the next 5 years, we can be a $50 million plus ARR company. That doesn't even include what we might see from HSPay. So that over the next 5 years, we really want to fully achieve on our mission of creating this self-serve product. The government agency, whether they're code enforcement or environmental health, they don't even have to necessarily go and have a sales agent directly reach out to them. They can go to our website, sign up for the software. So that is the vision. That is the plan. It's a lot of aggressive tactics from a technological build out perspective that we're doing to get there. But the market opportunity, it's truly billions of dollars. And, we are targeting to get a portion of it. And in that, we can build a very significant, very formidable SaaS company that is directly targeting the governmental space. It's something that I get so excited about. And I wear a smile in these presentations for one reason and one reason only, that the opportunity is right. The opportunity is significant. And I believe we have what it takes to really capture it.
Okay, thanks so much. So I'm going to leave it with at that. If anyone has any follow-up questions or they want to talk to Silas, more on a one-on-one basis, you can reach out to me and we can put you in touch with him or reach out to Silas directly. But thanks everyone for watching. And Silas, as always, thanks so much for being on with us.
Awesome. Thank you, Victoria, for having me. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in.